our last discussion, we will do distance and displacement. There's a last question where I tell us we could solve, but the last question just flash come out. So I tell us if we use vector solve them, and at the same time if we use cosine rule solve them, and the two methods if we take solve them. So a lot of people reach out to me back, say, Baba, this thing tough, they try them, they don't get them. So I can't decide, okay, make I go from the scratch, make I go talk about that vector. I know say that cosine rule, they very easy. All the formulas, they very easy for us to use. But on that physics level, we will use vectors. I mean, coplanar forces, all of those. We'll first start from resultant force. Waiting the resultant force. Resultant force, not the overall force where they act on a body, especially when you have two or more forces acting on that body. You go see all the forces like the 10 and 4 Newton, they on one side, while the 6 they on the other side. That is why you're having minuses, because that 6 they in the opposite side of the motions. So all when you deal with resultant force, all forces wey dey in one direction will be added together, and all forces wey dey in the other direction will be added together. Newton's second law of motion. Newton's second law of motion say the acceleration of a body is directly proportional to the net force acting on that body, which is in the direction of the body, and at the same time inversely proportional to the mass of the body. So in this case, you're going to say as mass they go up, acceleration they come down. Now, if acceleration is equals to 0, the force is also equals to 0. Definitely that body is in equilibrium. But if acceleration is not equals to 0, that is either the body they slow down, or be the body they climb, or be they glide. So that is not in equilibrium. The resultant force is not equal to 0. At all points, for body to be in equilibrium, resultant force must be equal to 0. That is why we always say all the forces in the other direction must be equal to the forces in one direction for body weight they at rest or body weight they at a constant velocity. When they identify forces acting on body, either way the body they in motion or the body they at rest. Now, most start from body weight they at rest, like body weight they like a block on a table. Now, two forces they act on that block. There's one we call the weight of the block, which is acting downward and due to gravity, and then there's another one called the normal reaction, which is the force that where the table they try to exert on the body to keep them stabilized. Now, take for example, when you go party, maybe say you don't hungry, don't wire you can't sit down for some chairs. Maybe say after some seconds, the chair will start to the open leg like this till your bag go biggie, you go fall. In that case, your weight, the reason why you go down, you say your weight don't pass the normal reaction of the table. There are three forces that are acting on this car in motion. One is the driving force, which is propelled by the engine of the car. It's the driving force which is moving the car forward. The other two forces, the frictional force, which is in between the tire of the car and the surface of the floor. And there's another force which is called the air resistance. Two forces that are against this driving force. The air resistance and the frictional forces, they are in the backward direction, while the driving force is in the forward direction. So if you're going to talk about this resultant force now, you will say the resultant force is equal to the driving force minus frictional force minus air resistance. If you watch this video, help me share, comment, like, just talk. So like this point now I don't put down now. So this driving force, air resistance and frictional force I showed there. So the owner to just calculate, and based on the example I don't do before, calculator waiting with the resultant force and tell me if this motorway they see so whether it waka or be it stable. At least with that resultant force you go feel know whether the motor they waka or be it stable, you know, move. You go feel talk like that. But when you come to a plane, an aeroplane that is flying at an altitude and also on a steady velocity, on a constant velocity. You know, say when you don't fly plane reach one kind of area, you go just like say the plane can't they float. You don't know whether they go or they come back. That's what we call steady altitude. So if come, maybe all those places where we say you go down see say the plane don't pass one kind of level, you can't see all those white things. If they happen like that, you go just look and say the thing just they go. You don't know whether they go forward. And so that's what all those areas now they call steady altitude. There are forces, 4 forces where they affect that plane. There's one we call the weight of the plane, where they try to pull the plane down. That one they act downward. And there's another one that is going up, which is called the lift. That lift they work with the ends of the plane. That is the fence of the plane. They keep the plane up. That is some breeze go they follow up, some breeze go they follow this. So you know go let the plane go like this, or be come like this. So then you go keep her steady. That one I would call lift. Lift must be equal to the weight of the plane for that plane to be at equilibrium at that steady point. Then there is another one called, which is where the hat on both sides. It's called the driving force of the plane is propelled by the engine of the force. Now that they push and go forward. And there is another one that is called air resistance. So the driving force is also against the air resistance. So at that point, the two of them must be equal so that the plane can stay on in equilibrium. We just stay, you will enjoy on the rocker. So there are those four forces. Don't forget, there's a lift which must be equal to the weight, and then there is a driving force which must be equal to the air resistance called drag. So those are the four forces acting on a plane. I hope you get that.